Hello, good people. Welcome back to the channel. As always, if you are enjoying these interviews, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Today, I am bringing you an interview with Kevin Fair of I Play Games. Launched in 2009, I Play Games brings gaming to companies and communities all over Chicago and the country. And I'm so excited to be speaking with Kevin today about games. Kevin, welcome to the channel.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I feel like this was in the making, and
Yes.
I just really appreciate when people, look out for your boy. And I know we
Yeah.
came through a mutual friend, but I,
Yes. Shout
I
out to
always want
yeah,
to tell people it's a nice gift. It's a
it is.
nice gift when people want to hear what you're working on.
It
So.
really is. And I am so excited that we got this together because I know it's been a long time coming. And I'm really excited to learn more about your program and what you've been doing. So, why don't we get started with how did you get into gaming? When did that start? It seems like it was sort of from your childhood. You were always into games and things like that. So, tell us a little bit more about that.
So I've been in the gaming as long as I can remember. I feel like now that we talk about Gen Zers and today's
Hmm.
kid and how they're always into their phones,
Right.
well, that was how I felt about video games. I think there was um, a really interesting thing about what I would consider this active art form, right?
Right.
That I think always drew me to it. And I think the technology portion is really big and
Yep.
important when it comes to talking about games. I mean, I begged my parents, basically ages like 3 through 5, for a regular Nintendo. And
Love
when I
it.
say I begged them, most people don't realize I used to look at the sales sheets and I would dream that they would get me one day. So I would draw on a sheet of paper
Oh
a
my gosh.
Nintendo and say, "So this is what I want," so that we make sure when we go to the store,
Right.
let's get the right thing. And so, for me, I've always been really interested in it. On top of that, I mean, my cousin, who was such a big influence on me,
Mm.
my older cousin Andre, he had, a game system. So going over to grandma's house and
Yep.
hanging out with my cousin was a lot of fun. Me and my brother to this day still enjoy playing video games. We virtually play every single night,
Love it.
on the way to bed. So that's a way that
Yeah.
I've bonded, made friends. And so, yeah, games has a really special place in my heart in a lot of different ways. So eventually picking a career for it seemed pretty natural.
Yes, absolutely love that. I remember when I was younger, I also loved playing games. Played a lot of GoldenEye. I
Oh,
loved, yeah, we know GoldenEye is the classic, the OG. I loved the PSP.
oh,
I'm
nice. Yeah.
sad that it never came back, but I have a Switch now, so that works. But yeah, love gaming and love gaming with family and things like that. It is a really great way to bring everybody together. I remember my cousins would be coming over and playing, and my uncles would be trying to beat them in all these different games. So totally understand with that. So, what were some of your favorite games and consoles growing up?
So NES, I finally that story has a good ending.
Yes,
So yes, I got it in Christmas of 1991. And
nice.
what's funny is that that's close to or around. I think that's the same Christmas that the Super NES came out.
Okay.
So I had asked for a Super NES, but I think all of my convincing beforehand worked too
Right.
well, and they said, "No, this is the one that he wanted." And so
Right.
I started off that generation with the last generation's game console.
Right.
Still found myself having a ball with it.
Yeah.
So favorite system definitely is where I always feel like where I started off was
Yes.
is with my NES.
Yes.
And I've really went through just about all the NES classic
Okay.
titles. And I think most people aren't able to really kind of grasp how important it was at the time. But Super Mario Brothers 3 was a really important game,
Yeah.
and I think it's cliche, right? It's cliche to say Mario Brothers, right? But I think
Tends
it's
to be.
really
Yes. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, but it's really interesting to say Super Mario Brothers 3
Mm.
specifically
Hmm.
because it was the game at the time. So imagine what Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to be,
Right.
where it was like, man, it's this new revolutionary game that graphically is really entertaining. Mario Brothers 3 was all of that, but
Yep.
it actually accomplished its goals, right? It looked great. It was doing things that were in the foreground with shadows in the background. It had a background to the game. The game itself was just not a flat piece of art.
Yep.
It was a living, breathing kind of like, hey, you can go in this background, you can go in this foreground, and
Yep.
we've got shading colors and twisting things. And so looked really cool. It sounded really cool. I still very much admire the soundboard
Yes.
that Mario Brothers 3 in a lot of ways. And
Yes.
then I've had a ton of other games that have gotten hours and hours of my time. So
Right.
if I flash forward, 10 years, you're right. Definitely loved GoldenEye. I think I beat
Yes.
that on 007 mode.
Love it.
Then my brother and I played Gears of War 2 for
Okay.
years and years
Hmm.
at a time. Then we literally played Overwatch from 2015 until like the last year or so.
I haven't heard that name in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean they've done some things that I think were pretty genius. At the
Yep.
same time, I think that the execution just fell a little short.
Yep.
Shouts out to Blizzard; they've never made a bad video game.
Right.
And then I've been playing Apex probably for the last year or two, pretty
Got it.
consistently.
Love it, love it. All those games. I love the Mario games in general. And like you said, it's cliche, but like people need to get over that. Like Mario is a great, solid game, right?
Yeah,
And they just added. This is another one that people don't tend to count as like gaming, and we'll get a little bit into this a little bit later. But like,
yeah.
I play Animal Crossing right now a lot, and my mom plays it a lot too.
Oh, nice.
And they just added in the Mario like
Mm-hmm.
components. They have like
Yep.
the pipes and everything. I am obsessed. Like it got me back into the game because I was like, oh my gosh, like my worlds are colliding. So people need to give Mario a little bit more credit for that. So where did the inspiration for I Play Games come from? And what is I Play Games? I think you were an accountant before, and then you said, you know what, this isn't the life for me. I want to start something that I'm actually really passionate about. So tell us about what is I Play Games and how you got the inspiration for it.
So I Play Games is your turnkey solution for video game events. We
That.
perform a number of different services, kind of provide my story, a lot of other things that really kind of come down to the client list.
Yep.
But also, I think at the core of it, this is what I love for people to see. It's people having a really good time, people
Yeah.
being brought together through the experience of video games. And then you can see, I try to include, we try to include a diverse type of experience.
Yes.
We've got retro games, we've got competitive games, we have games that kids are just having a good time with. And that really, to me, is what makes all of this, kind of worthwhile. It's my passion in that way because
Yeah.
it's a way where people who really from all different walks of life kind of come together and think about, how a piece of artwork gets you into problem solving. And so
Mhm.
for me, in a really big way, I've tried to take that love for video games and what video games organically does and apply that to having a good time, like at a party or a convention where
Right.
we provide all of the setups that you're looking at right now, or at a tournament where we're the moderators and we help come on
Mm.
board, set up the tournament, set up the equipment for the tournament. And we also help groups plan and consult these types of things, which not only just includes your big conventions like your C2E2s, your
Right.
ASINs, and stuff like that, but also what we've done in the educational sector as far as pulling together esports and how esports in a lot of ways is video games way into competition, into STEM, into
Yes.
all of those things. So I
Yes.
really try to make what we do a very comprehensive experience of, hey, you're going to have a good time with this, you're going to be inspired by the artistry that you're looking at, and you're going to be really preempted to learn, to think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that I think gaming does just a really great job of kind of once again encompassing all of those types of things. Now, how I came on to that is a much funnier story. I You are correct. I definitely took the very traditional and good route. I got it my bachelor's
Yep.
of science and computer science, and I went directly into the workforce.
Right.
I started my first job at a big accounting firm, and I think everybody was like, "You did it, man! Congratulations!" But
Right.
here I was thinking in my mind, I said, "Well, everybody works a job that they don't like, and that's just a part of being a big person. You're an
Yes. Yep.
adult now, so
Indeed.
you go do stuff you don't want to do, but if the money is correct, then you live for that, right?"
Exactly.
And I found myself quickly saying, "That's a lie. You can't live for that. You
Right.
cannot live for trying to do things that don't make you happy."
Yeah.
And honestly, it's going to weigh on, at the time we weren't talking about mental health, but that's what it was doing. It was
Yeah.
weighing on my
Yeah.
mental health.
Yeah.
It did not feel you gave me I made so much money at that job, and I was,
Mm.
coming right out of undergrad.
Yep.
So many people looked at it as a blessing. Meanwhile, they didn't know that I was an unhappy person. And so I play games comes from when people at the job used to ask me, what do? I used to say, I play games. And so it felt
Wow.
really organic, and it just was who I was. I didn't put
Yeah.
any thought into it. It wasn't a trained answer or anything
Yeah.
like that, which I feel like I had been giving for so long, right? You go into an interview for a big job, you give a trained answer.
Yes.
You are trying to get a promotion, you give a trained answer.
Right.
You're trying to graduate from school, trained answer, trained answer, trained answer. And
Right.
so, I play games was something that once again was just organically me.
Yeah.
And when I started thinking about at the time, man, this experience is really causing me to reflect. I said, what would you do that you would be happy and you could find your own path into it? Now, mind you,
Mhm.
all this esports and streaming stuff did not exist.
I was yeah, we'll get
So
into that. Yep.
so you think about like I really was taking a leap of faith on something that I think
Yes.
I just understood generationally. I
Yeah.
said I felt like millennials are going to grow up as into adults, and into adulthood they're going to be looking for a lot of different ways to branch their
Mhm.
love for video games into just enjoying themselves in an adult way, fashion, and time. So
Yes.
then you start seeing the boom of all of the arcade bars, and you start seeing the VR rooms and all of these types of things kind of come along with it. And for me, we were ahead of that curve, but we were
Yes.
just, I did not have, a rich uncle that was like, here, man, here's 100,000 to start your
Right.
business.
Right.
So I tell a lot of kids, my career in this started from me taking my formal education, which was in computer science,
Right.
and being really resourceful as a new business owner. So I repaired the first set of Xboxes that were
Mm.
for our event. So
Right.
I had to go in and swap out bad disk drives, which somebody let them go for $50 a pop.
Yep.
I went and found some value televisions, some
Yeah.
true value TVs,
Listen.
and and I hosted my very first event. And I think for everything that we lacked in glamour and high definition television this and and we're going to be super streamed on that, what we lacked in that we made up way more in the concept that people were like, hey man, this is an event that I've been looking for, and people were
Yes.
just so happy to have it.
Yes.
And that was honestly the reward, but it was also the sign, right? So it
Yes.
was the big
Yes.
sign for me that this is the right thing. I'm into what I'm into, and I'm also making people happy. I
Yes.
see where there could be revenue in this, and the rest is history, I guess. I don't know. I
Listen,
don't think that's how you do it, but
having that foresight, like, you kind of led into one of my next questions, but, like, having the foresight to be like, this is like, everything's cyclical, right? But also people are craving sort of that nostalgia of playing games on their TVs, and just, like, having
Mhm.
fun with their friends and things like that. So the fact that you knew that this was gonna be a thing, and now we have esports, which is just this huge, huge thing, and it's getting bigger by the day, right? I mean,
All the
I've got
time, right?
even in my job, I work in international relations, but even in my job, there are countries that are like, we want to have esports, competitions and things like that because
Yeah.
they're, related and things like that. So I wonder, what do you think about the esports sort of thing that's going on, and where the sort of future of it is? I know it's really big in South Korea, and places like that, but I think didn't they just announce that there's going to be like a big facility built on like the Southwest side here in Chicago or something like that?
So
Oh,
yes, there
okay.
actually is a facility in Bronzeville that's
There is
being
one. Okay.
worked on.
Yep.
Yes. And so I really enjoy that someone is looking to make that type of investment in these
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
But then, I think that there's the things that I get excited about because
Sure.
I think they're good prospects. And then there's also things that I tell people all the time, well, I saw this coming because
Mhm.
South Bend, Bendix Arena already exists. South Bend has built an
Yep.
esports arena, right?
Right.
And I think all of these really great auxiliary places that, we've kind of, cultivated community at beforehand. So, in the Ignite Lounge have to, make sure to show some
Right.
love to San Winata. Those places have existed. And I think they existed as the prototype for
Right.
something like this. So in a lot of ways, I could see it coming, right?
Right.
And so I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And once again, I think what really excites me about this is that someone's willing to make from what I hear, a $30 million investment
Right.
in
Right.
esports. So
Love it. Yeah, Ignite Gaming. Daniela, shout out to her and her husband. Like, I used to work with Daniela at the consulate. Yeah, I totally think that it's great that they're making that investment because, again, people need, sort of resources and things like that. And if it's not in areas where people are playing games, then why even have it, right?
very
So
true.
hopefully it'll be good for the community and things like that. What has been the most rewarding aspect of starting iPlay games?
Oh, I could tell you that pretty easily. I've been able to connect with the next generation of children really
Yeah.
easily
Yep.
through these shared experiences.
Yep.
Um, in one of my classes, I start up my system so a lot of people can see what it is that I'm playing.
Mm,
And when students are like, yeah, I'm playing that and I'm having trouble getting through this part,
right.
and we get to connect
Yep.
on an instant level of like, well, I know what you're experiencing. I know how to help mentor you through that. And,
Right.
once again, they're going to show you something, you thought
Yeah.
you had seen everything.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty is it reminds me as a kid,
Yeah.
once again, there's reasons why I like Mario Brothers a lot.
Right.
My dad used to play from time to time. I mean, he would just be like, "Oh, this is cute. It's fun." I don't think my dad would ever really qualify himself as a gamer, and I think his
Right.
experiences pretty much stopped at that, Super Mario number one.
Mhm.
And World 8-1 introduces the biggest gap pitfall at first,
Mm,
and we were playing that entire game without knowing that you could run by holding B at the same time.
right.
So my dad's trying to clear this gap, and he's like, "How are you supposed to clear this? There's no way you can jump that far." And
Right.
I was like, you could hold B and run."
Right.
He didn't know that, and I don't think he really got that concept. So I sit there and show him like how I was looking at the game differently as a kid, and
Yeah.
how with all of his problem solving ability, he just need a fresh perspective on it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Now I'm a namesake. So he just needed Kevin that was born 35 years later to come along and take a look at it, right?
Exactly.
So and so one of the I think the really cool things about it is that I expect
Yeah.
have those kind of moments where sure I've lived a life where I've looked at this and I can problem solve that, but
Right.
guess what, I think the real beauty is that we get to work with kids because they already like video games. You don't have to convince them to do that,
Right.
and they're going to show you how they look at the world through these experiences. Sit with a kid for 5 minutes and watch them play Minecraft and
Yep.
tell me you didn't learn something about that kid or about their experiences through that.
Yeah.
And I think games are just a really wonderful tool in that and being able to connect people in that way. In addition to, I think they're a tool that singularly do something better than anything else.
Yeah.
They encourage kids to problem solve with no inherent reward at the end.
Yes.
When we was coming up, if you did a book report, they had to give you pizza.
Right.
They
Right.
had
Yeah.
to encourage us to read. They had to come up with a whole system with Pizza Hut where they
Right.
were like, listen, we'll give vouchers to the kids if they prove they read this book.
Oh my gosh. That's
And
so
then
cool.
Pizza Hut said, great, because we'll give personal pan pizzas, but mama and them are going to come buy an extra large Supreme and we'll make the money like that. Well,
Exactly.
games don't require any of that. Kids are going
Mm,
to work hard. They're going to problem solve. They're going to socialize. They're going to communicate, learn to become better communicators. All
yeah.
the idea in mind that solving a problem in itself is rewarding.
Yeah.
So, no, man, getting to see that type of growth and being able to connect with that generation in a lot of ways is probably the most rewarding thing. It's maintained friendships through the pandemic.
Yeah.
I could talk all day about
I
them.
love that. That's so beautiful, and it's so important because I think a lot of times we try to force kids to problem solve through, math or through other different things, and, like, but I always even in my current job, I always am like, "Okay, but how can we make this fun? How can we make this a game?" Like, gamification of, like, everything, right? Like,
Yeah,
how can we make this fun so that people are actually engaged in it? Especially with the pandemic for the past year, it's been really hard to keep people engaged, but if you can make it into a game, so things like Kahoot, right, or stuff like that, they've been able to do really well because people are like, okay, well, at least I'm playing a game and I'm having fun with it, right?
true.
Love that, love that.